Kapla warriors, today is a good day for cookies, for talking and learning about cookies. Hopefully my dog doesn't recognize the word cookie when I say it with a British accent. Hopefully it's different enough, because otherwise she's going to be flipping out. Now Gamma, I disagree with you. I prefer my oatmeal cookies without raisins or chocolate. I like them just oatmeal. They're quite good. I don't do raisins in any form. It's the only dried fruit I don't like, which is strange. I even like prunes. Anyway, question of the day. What's your favorite cookie? Why don't we start out with mine? My favorite type of cookie is a s'mores cookie, which is next to impossible to find vegan, so these days I'd have to make it myself. But I love s'mores cookies. I love anything s'mores flavored. Trader Joe's makes a very good vegan marshmallow. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I haven't switched the screen. You're still just staring. I jumped in too quickly. I was too excited. I just get excited about cookies. Anyway, so today, general baking, science, common mistakes, tips, etc. And then, I'll get into that, but also 1F. Well, you could definitely make some peanut butter cookies very easily with, I'll discuss Bob's Red Mill gluten-free flour blend is excellent for baking. You just might have to adjust the moisture a bit, but I'm certain it would work quite well for you. Now, anyway, let's review the schedule before we begin. Mondays are gaming. Tuesdays, well, Tuesdays are a little complicated. I got flagged for the Dragonborn Comes. And, oh no, which song was it for? I got flagged for one of the songs. So, that's the second time, so might be having to stop the karaoke, unfortunately. So might have to replace Tuesdays with something else, or figure that out. Anyway, Wednesday's class with Dr. Export, today's baking, we'll vote on next week's topic, the end of tonight. Thursday's gaming, we're also going to vote tonight on if we want Stellar Blade or Tales of Seku tomorrow. Last time I asked, there was mixed comments. And then Friday's Nikkei guest host stream. You all will be continuing to vote in the impression election. So far, it's looking like Jen. Looks like it goes to Jen. Anyway, yes, out of context, I was quite frustrated because I see people doing karaoke all the time on the internet, so how do they do it? And then before we jump in, any thoughts on the events so far? Stellar Blade Collab Part 2 started today. I'm only 5 chapters in, but so far, this has to be added to the archive immediately. It has so much relevant lore. Also, reminder, we voted that our monthly virtual food gathering will be tomorrow. We will do Mexican food. I still haven't quite decided where I'm going to go and if I'm getting a burrito, a chimichanga, or tacos. It's a very difficult choice, especially because eating out is so expensive now. Back in the day, I probably would have just gotten one of each. But now I'm like, oof, I probably shouldn't go that crazy. If it's not a copyright strike, it's a thing where I have to share revenue with them and this whole thing. They take it all. And reminder, the new video is out Friday, and it's already out for tier 3 members. Sleepy, out of context, anyone else? Feel free to comment with no spoilers. It's about the favorite item system and includes a new song, and which also will include a new music video. Gas station burrito blue tut. I don't know. I've read about people getting food poisoning from things being not kept at the right temperature, so I'm a little afraid of that. Tamales Gamma Spectre. Good idea. I'd have to go somewhere separate for them, but I understand there's somewhere nearby that makes very good tamales. Anyway, let's move into cookies, because I have a lot to say. Alright, so here's images of my favorite type of cookie. I love s'mores cookies. As I said, next to impossible to find vegan ones. So I'll have to make them myself, which I've never done, simply because I'm lazy. And, but yes, I used to get s'mores cookies all the time. They're my favorite. And, Yes, I just love s'mores in general. I made this cake for myself once. I accidentally used double the butter, which was fantastic. Certainly not great for my arteries, but it was very good. All right. So as I start my talk, I'm going to stay on this image. This cookie is from Levain Bakery in I was going to say NYC, and is largely voted, is frequently cited as the best chocolate chip cookie in the United States. Logmania, this was before I was vegan, I used the double butter. Anyway, this is frequently voted as the best chocolate chip cookie in the United States. Levain Bakery in New York City. I've never had it. I've had copycats at other bakeries, I believe. And when I went to New York years and years ago, I'm not sure if it existed, or I obviously didn't know about it. So, redacted, I agree with you on the chopped chocolate. I prefer chopped chocolate. Alright, and yes, out of context, everyone, please get your bakery cookies jokes out now. I'll also be saying the word creamed a lot, please. Please. Alright, so this is frequently... anyone ever had this cookie? From Levain Bakery in New York City. Frequently voted to be the #1 in America. Here's some other cookies. I don't know what the hell this is exactly. I don't know what this is exactly. Ugh, I meant to keep the stream clean so my nephew can listen. Sorry, sip of water there. Anyway. Oh, and then here, of course, the classic. This is what I always had growing up. Sorry about the blurriness. The Toll House, Nestle Toll House, chocolate chip cookie, back of the bag recipe. This is what I always had growing up. And this used to be the recipe I used. Even when I went vegan, I used this recipe and used substitutes. But I'll tell you what I prefer now. Yes, K-Chim, definitely. I might go to New York sometime next year, and I'll definitely have to make a trip. Well, 1F, he's only 5, so I'm not sure if he's heard worse at school yet. All right. So let's go back to this picture, because I quite like it, and we'll get started. I have a lot here. Okay, so the basics of baking. And this will, what I discuss will be applying to most kinds of cookies that you'll want to make. Cakes, cupcakes, quick breads, or like spice cakes. And, I won't be discussing pastries or French pastries, macarons, or macaron, or meringue, or, what's the other thing? Or bread. Because that's too much to fit in 1 hour. That's like 3+ hours. Anyway. So, one of the most important things in baking, no matter what you're baking, actually, this includes pastries, meringue, everything. One of the most important things is the temperature of the ingredients. Before I move along, forever confused, what's the confusion? Are you just mocking? Is this a joke about your name? Anyway, the temperature of the ingredients is crucial. So, one of the most important things is the butter. Now, if you've baked cookies before, like chocolate chip, or similar, then you have probably seen that the recipe will call for room temperature butter, and it may or may not call for room temperature eggs. If it's a good recipe, it will have that written, but regardless, you want your eggs room temperature. So, when you're baking, typically, you're going to want the ingredients to all be a similar temperature, because this is important to the chemical process. So this is important, because the butter... So it's similar to softened butter. So Lagmania, it might say room temperature butter, it might say softened. Thank you, 1F. Click the cookie. So your recipe might say softened, it might say room temperature. They're about the same. Now you can see here, this is a brand new stick of butter. This butter on the right is too soft. You don't want this butter. Your cookies will not, and your cake, especially for your cake or cupcakes. It will ruin your cake or cupcakes. Your cookies will probably be alright, but your cake or cupcakes will turn out much worse. You want more like this in the middle. So your butter, although it says room temperature, you should still want it slightly cool to the touch. And if you poke it, it should make an indentation, but your finger shouldn't go right through. this is a mistake I used to frequently make. Sorry, these are small. I like this one. This is a mistake I frequently made as an early baker and as a child. I figured, softened, well, I'll just melt it then. And I'd melt it in the microwave. Or once I learned not to melt it, I was like, well, then I will, then I'll just soften it in the microwave. But that's not good either, because if you soften it in the microwave, the outside will be melty, the middle will be firm still. It won't be even. So yes, you want this middle one. This one's too cold, it's fresh from the fridge. This one's too soft. If your butter looks, if you've softened it and it looks greasy or shiny, or let me get my notes. I seem to have moved the butter section to a different place. What the heck? See, I said heck that time. So if it's greasy, if it's shiny, if it's mushy, if your finger goes right through it, it's too soft, it's too warm, your cake won't be good. As I said, your cookies will probably turn out fine, not optimum, but you don't want it for your cakes or cupcakes. You want it like this middle one. I believe I even have another because it's so important. This one's a little hard to see. But you can kind of see here, it indented a bit. This one gets really into detail. So if I wanted to bake, sometimes if I was baking that day, I'd be like, well, I'll just take out a stick and leave it out. And I'd leave it for hours, but then it's too soft and I didn't know that. So you really want your butter, yes, the butter temperature is probably the #1 most important thing. Now, ideally your eggs, as I said, your eggs should also be room temperature. You can leave butter and eggs out for about an hour, and depending on the temperature of your kitchen and, you know, the time of year, winter versus summer, about an hour in the kitchen should do it. If you want to soften your eggs more quickly, you can submerge them for a few minutes in warm water, but not hot water. If you submerge the eggs in hot water, they will begin to cook, and it's disgusting. And then, let me get to my... And so you might be wondering, well, what's the science behind this? So in many baking science, such as cake, cupcakes, cookies, you start the recipe by creaming together. It's the term usually you will see is cream, the butter and the sugar, and you create an emulsion with the eggs, the butter, the sugar, the wet ingredients. So, Logmania. And this creates an emulsion. And so when room temperature ingredients bond together, it creates a better emulsion which traps more air, and this air expands when it is baked. And so, let me see. I seem to have... And if your ingredients are cold, they will not emulsify well, or perhaps at all. And if they're melted or warm, they won't be effective at trapping the air either. Now, sometimes you do want cold butter, by the way, for other recipes. Pie, you want it nice and cold as possible. Croissants, you especially need the butter cold. So much so you keep it in the fridge while you cook it, while you make it. It's a long process. Anyway, so sometimes you want the cold butter. But in this case, no, because you're creating an emulsion. You want cold butter when you're trying to create flaky layers, like a croissant or a pie, not for cookies and cakes and cupcakes. I thought I had more information about... Where did I put it? I had even more to say. Well, that's strange. Alright, anyway, let's move on. So the eggs and the butter should both be room temperature. Butter not too cold, butter not too soft. Now for your cookies, they'll probably turn out reasonably good no matter what. But your cake, it's very important. Redacted, the size of the eggs isn't very important. For the most part. It's more the number of eggs and what part of the egg you are using. Now, moving on. Oh, this is one I especially liked. This is a nice one with the finger test. So this butter is fresh from the fridge, cold. See how they make a nice indentation, but the butter's still cool to the touch and firm. This one, you can see it's starting to get shiny. The one on the left, can you see how it's a bit shiny or greasy? When your butter starts to sweat, that means it's definitely too cold, and the emulsion of the butter is breaking down. So anyway, all right. Now, creaming your butter. this is very important. This is what went wrong the other day with the cookies I made. They got ruined because I have this new attachment for my mixer that is incredible. So I'm used to the regular attachment. If I use this new attachment, it cuts the mixing time down by about 50 to 75%. So I walked away for just a minute. When I came back, it was ruined. And I didn't have more butter. So, pay attention, because so creaming it together means you're mixing the butter and the sugar together. That's the first thing you do. So, if it's undercreamed, you can see here, it's not well mixed together. It's going to be kind of chunky, and that's not good. Your cake is going to be dense. It's not going to rise well. It's going to have a dense texture, which I like dense bread, but dense cake I don't think most of us want in this manner. Redacted, there is a similarity to the science, yes, between meringue and the butter, because all that aeration, yes, Logmania, it's exactly, redacted, exactly. Very similar in the science with the introduction of the air. Now this is overcreamed, and this is what ruined my cookies. They actually tasted quite good still, so I said, cookies most of the time, if they're not macarons, are going to turn out well, but they were hideous, and I couldn't bring them to work. I was embarrassed, because they were all spread out. They looked terrible. So it's really important to not under or overcream them. All right. Another important thing is you want to know your oven. So most ovens are not perfect unless you're like a factory oven or a professional bakery. Then your oven's probably not perfect. If you heat it to 350, which is the standard baking time for most things, kind of the go-to baking time, if you heat it to 350, your oven's probably not perfectly at 350. So what can you do about this? Well, know your oven. I usually know my oven tends to cook faster than a recipe calls for. So I typically set my timer for a bit early, and I check the cookies a bit earlier than the recipe says. Now, if your oven cooks slower, you want to keep that in mind too. Another very easy solution, go on Amazon, buy a cheap oven thermometer, preheat your oven to 350 with the thermometer in there, in the middle of the middle rack, the center of the middle rack, and then check once you're preheated. Does it say 350? Is it 345? 355? Is it 370? Because that's very important. Important for other things too, like if you're roasting vegetables, not just baking. Because if your oven is hotter or cooler, that's going to impact your baking. Also, try to know if your oven has any hot spots, because most do. So you might want to rotate whatever you're baking if your oven has a hot spot. Do you know what a hot spot is, right? It's usually spots in the oven that are hotter than the others. All right. Now, you also need to make sure... Oh, I forgot about this lovely picture. This is a nice one too, because you can see, this one on the right, that's what mine looked like, and I was like, I'm a failure, but I don't have more ingredients. And then this one, beautiful, perfect. This one, you can see how it's kind of chunky, grainy, so not good. Oh, I'll move on to that in a bit. But first, we're going to talk about ingredients. Now make sure you are using... Redacted, what's a cooling oven? I'm not familiar with that. Logmania, that's horrifying. So use the correct ingredients. Have any of you ever seen those people that will put reviews on a recipe? And like I read this woman who was following a review where the woman was making carrot cake from the recipe online. She said that she had done things like changed the amount of sugar, and she had swapped out the carrots because carrots are too sugary, she said. So she swapped it out for shredded kale, and her carrot cake made with shredded kale and a few other substitutions turned out disgusting. In her review, she wanted to know, any thoughts on what happened? What happened is you should probably get help, because that's frightening. That you were that stupid. The carrots provided much needed moisture and sweetness. So, hopefully you're not one of those people that thinks you can just make any random swap and it'll work out. I don't understand people like that. But anyway, use the correct ingredients. Or if you're going to swap, know what you are doing. I'll get onto that later. So, some important things to know. You need to, if it says, know if the recipe is the recipe calling for salted or unsalted butter. Pretty much any baking recipe is going to call for unsalted butter. There are bakers who like to use salted butter, but you have to know what you're doing, because then when you add salt in the recipe later, which you always must do, you don't want the recipe to turn out overly salty. Now next is baking powder and baking soda. Does your recipe call for one or the other or both? Now, baking soda is stronger and is a base, which is just pure sodium bicarbonate. Baking powder is baking soda and added dry acid such as cream of tartar, and the addition of this acid to the base neutralizes it. So they are used for different purposes. And you can see the reaction of the baking soda here, the base with the acid. So recipes that call for baking soda will usually also call for an acid later in the recipe. And that acid, such as the vinegar, creates the reaction that causes the bubbles, which is important for the rising. So baking powder and baking soda are leaveners. They make it rise. And then another important thing to know is which kind of cocoa is your recipe calling for? If it calls for cocoa, does it want Dutch process or does it want natural cocoa? And so Dutch process cocoa are beans that have been washed in an alkaline solution. So it's a neutral cocoa and it does not react with baking soda. Versus natural cocoa has no wash, it's just plain, so it's highly acidic and stronger and will react with baking soda. Logmania, I recommend drinking soda from a straw to protect your teeth. It's very helpful. And then, so which baking cocoa do you use? I understand that most on the shelves in grocery stores in the United States are natural cocoa, not Dutch process. But use the one that is called for in your recipe, obviously. But a rule of thumb is that you can often use either one in a recipe that calls for both baking soda and baking powder. And if necessary, you can swap Dutch with natural, so you can substitute natural for Dutch, but you cannot substitute Dutch for natural. That will be a problem. And then if your recipe doesn't specify, check, does it call for baking powder or baking soda, and that can help you make your determination. Then also pay attention to what the recipe says about eggs. Does it call for, how many eggs does it call for? Does it call for 1 egg, 2 eggs? Does it call for a whole egg? Does it call for just egg whites? Does it call for just egg yolks? Does it call for a whole egg and a yolk? This matters because whites provide that airiness and structure, whereas the yolk is more for richness and a different kind of texture. I swear some of my notes got deleted. Oh, I see. Never mind. There it is. Okay. Also, pay attention to what kind of flour your recipe is calling for. Ah, here's another picture. So this is a recipe that used, you can see only baking powder here, only baking soda here, mix of both. Most baking recipes call for both in different amounts, and pay attention to the amounts. So you can obviously see that this middle one had the best rise compared to the others. This last one, it clearly rose too much and then collapsed, I'm guessing. And then, or just sunk. And then this one has strange bubbles. Check. Here's another good one. This one has no leaveners. It's disgusting. This has both. This has one or the other. So, as long as you use one, it'll be edible. But you can see the prettiest is right here. All right. Now, pay attention also to what kind of flour the recipe calls for. And I don't mean wheat versus white. Obviously, that's important, but that's common sense, right? There are other kinds of flours. There's cake flour, bread flour, and all-purpose flour. So the difference between these types of flours is largely the protein content, with cake flour having the least protein and bread flour having the most protein, because this impacts the chewiness. You want a cake to be light, you want a bread to have more chewiness. Now, you can usually substitute all-purpose flour for either bread flour or cake flour. Hold on, I need a sip of water. Redacted, yes, you can use cream of tartar for cookies. Some cookies might call for perhaps baking soda and cream of tartar, which essentially is creating the baking powder. Yes, unbleached and bleached as well, that's true. So the gluten content does matter, Lagmania, when it comes to the type of flour the recipe calls for. We will discuss gluten-free. But you can use all-purpose flour for cake flour. What you need to do, though, is use per 1 cup. So let's say the recipe calls for 1 cup. You'd take out 2 tablespoons of the all-purpose flour, and you'd add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And then you can use all-purpose flour for bread flour, same amount, cup per cup, but it will slightly impact the chewiness. You should never use cake for bread or bread for cake. That will not turn out well. And then another tip. Out of context, I'm actually, I'm not 100% sure. I believe bleached is for, like, the removal, supposed to remove, you know, toxins or whatever. Not toxins, but I can't think of the word. Someone here, help me answer this question. Unbleached versus bleached. I don't pay much attention to this. KTM's self-rising flour, I believe, has additional ingredients that allow it to rise without the addition of other ingredients. And then another tip. Follow the recipe unless you really know what you are doing. So if you're going to substitute an ingredient, such as make it vegan or veganize it, as I say, make sure you understand the science underneath it, which we will discuss later. So I've seen people, you know, the kale is a perfect example. That woman did not understand the science, which is that removing carrots and replacing them with kale, well, you'll lose a lot of sweetness and you'll lose a lot of moisture. So that's disgusting. Redacted, that might be correct. I'm really not sure. So another important thing in following the recipe is don't skip steps. So a perfect example is if you're making cake, cupcakes, or cookies. Your recipe is going to tell you, cream the butter and sugar, add the eggs and the vanilla. In a separate bowl, mix the flour, the salt, the baking powder, the baking soda, and the baking powder, typically. And sometimes, you know, cinnamon or whatever. Then you slowly add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. You must do it like that. Don't think, well, I'll work smarter, not harder, and I will just do it all in one bowl. No, don't do that. They won't turn out as good. There's a science behind it. 1F, I actually like kale, but not raw. I like kale if it's sauteed in oil or butter with plenty of salt. Because then it's not really... Or I like it in soup because it stands up to the soup. But plain or raw is disgusting. Alright, moving on. How to know when your cookies, or cake, or cupcakes, which are just mini cakes, obviously. How do you know when they are done? Let me see if I had any pictures. Oh, I had a video. Oh, well. So for soft cookies, if you want your cookies, I had a picture here. Oh, this is a good one. So for nice, soft cookies, it depends on what you want for your cookies. Out of context, I have not tried grilled lettuce, but I would love to. I would very much like to. It sounds delicious. Grilled anything is good. Hello, Joshua. So anyway, if you want your cookies to be nice and soft, take them out when the edges are golden and slightly brown, but it still looks fairly undone in the middle. Do you see in this picture, it's still looking quite wiggly in the middle, quite almost raw, but you can see they're taking a nice form. Take them out then, and leave them on the pan for 10 minutes to finish cooking on the pan. They will cook more and set on the hot pan. If you want your cookies crispier, let them bake a bit longer and get a bit more done before you take them out. And then, for cakes and cupcakes, you can do the classic toothpick test, which is where you take a toothpick, poke it in the center, pull it out. If it comes out and it's covered in wet batter, it's not ready. If it comes out dry or just with some dry crumbs, it's done. Many chefs prefer the bounce back test for a cake or a cupcake. This is where you gently touch the center with a finger or 2 fingers, and then see if you just lightly press, does it bounce back slowly or does it stay indented? If it stays dented, it's not done. Yes, 1F. I believe they call those chocolate thumbprint cookies, or... No, that's not right. They call them something else. Blue... that's gonna bother me. I love those too. Alright. Next. Make sure to... About knowing when they're done. Know your oven, as I said. But also important, so when I have my... Make use of your oven light, if your oven has one. Unfortunately, my oven light went out, and I keep forgetting to ask maintenance to fix it. But use your oven light. So, if the recipe calls for your cookies to cook for 9 to 11 minutes, set your timer for 9 minutes, turn on the light, see how they look. Don't continuously... So don't go check it 9 minutes, open it... Close it. Okay, not done. Check it 10 minutes. Open it, close it, done. Check it 11. Open it, close it, done. No, don't do that. Especially for your cakes. Your cookies will still turn out alright. Your cakes or your cupcakes could get ruined. Because you're repeatedly letting the heat out and then closing it. And it can cause your cake to collapse. And there are a few things more frustrating than when you take a beautiful cake out of the oven and then it, over the next 5 to 10 minutes, as it cools, it collapses. Breaks my heart. So don't check excessively. It will disturb the baking process. Laurinator. The internal... no, Laurinator. That's not a good way to go with a cookie, unfortunately. It just won't work out the same way. Not advised, except for the thermometer for the oven. And then let's discuss tools a little bit before I move on. Oh, thanks, Zebrin, for gifting a tier 1 subscription. Very kind of you to Forever Confused. And, by the way, thanks for joining Forever Confused. Not even for cupcakes, Laurinator. I mean, I suppose you could, but it's really not the best way. Alright. So, some of the most important tools to have, many of these you probably already have. If you're going to invest in something, it's not even really an investment, but my number 1 suggested baking tool is a silicone baking mat. It's incredible the difference this makes. Next time I bake, I'll take a photo to show you. It really does make a difference. So I take my sheet pan. One time, I was making my cookies. I was in a hurry. So I had one sheet pan that had the silicone baking mat on it, but I didn't have time to let it cool before the next batch, so I put it on another one without the silicone baking mat. And the cookies turned out so much worse because the silicone baking mat distributes the heat evenly and your cookies will turn out picture perfect. Without it, you're going to have them turn out different levels of bake, different levels of spread. It's just not as good. And Zebrin, oh wait, no, who asked about the air fryer? Redacted, yes, it is possible to make cookies in the air fryer. You can indeed. I haven't done it, but it does work, is my understanding. Logmania, you're right. Thanks so much, Zebrin. And reminder, you can use your Prime subscription to subscribe on Twitch for free. And if you did it last month and it's been a month, please go ahead and do it again because you have to do so manually. All right. Other tools. So number 1, silicone baking mat. If you're going to buy something, make it a silicone baking mat. Now, if you want to splurge, get a stand mixer. But a hand mixer will do. And theoretically, I suppose you could do it entirely by hand, but you can do that for brownies, but it's going to be harder for other recipes. You'll also want wet and dry measuring cups. If you're going all in here, you're going to want those glass liquid measuring cups. Those are usually made by, what's that brand? Pyrex. Or just, a glass one, because that's important for the liquids to get the accurate measurement. And then just regular measuring cups for the dry ingredients. Other ingredients, butter. Alton Brown says use the highest quality butter you can. Many bakers prefer Kerrygold butter, which is like that Irish butter or European. Many swear by European butters because they typically have a higher fat content. Yes, Zebrin, baking paper is helpful as well, but if you have the silicone baking mat, you don't need the paper. And then you don't have to bother with that. And then, let's see, a cooling rack is helpful, because, it circulates the air more properly as the cookie cools. Yes, Logmania, silicone is non-stick, super easy to clean, distributes the heat more easily. It's wonderful. Alternatives redacted for the silicone? I'm really not sure. Hold on, WhenF. Oh, for those silicone brand mats. Ooh. I'm trying to think what brand I have. Really, any will work. I'm not sure what brand I have right now. I might have a King Arthur one that someone bought for me, because I believe the one I have right now is a gift. But any kitchen-safe silicone, oven-safe. I mean, I think all silicone is oven-safe, but that will work. DM, I would bet the butter, the armor shell would work very well. I'm guessing it's high-fat content. It's the Americans that are always trying to... the typical Americans that are always trying to remove the fat from things. K-Chim, baking sheets. What do you mean? What did I... a baking sheet... The silicone baking mat goes on the baking sheet. And then a cookie scoop is a great tool. I'm not speaking from experience, though. I wish I had a cookie scoop to make nice, uniform, prettier cookies. They're not very expensive. I'm just too cheap to buy one. If you'd like to buy me one, that would be great. They're only like $10, but, I grew up on a tight budget, so for me, it's like, do I need it? No? Alright, I'll wait for my birthday or Christmas. And if I don't get it then, well, then I just don't have it. Now, if you are serious about your baking, you'll want a kitchen scale. Because the best for baking is not like cooking, where you can eye it and you can taste and move it around. Baking is a science, an exact science. So, the best way to make a perfectly baked item is to weigh your ingredients, especially things like your flour and your sugar. Zebra, and yes, it requires measurements much more precise. So if you have a scale, a kitchen scale, that will help. DM, I don't have an ice cream scoop either. You could use a tablespoon, that's true. Now, common mistakes. Back over here. No, damn it. Where the heck? Here it is. Common mistakes. And this is related to the butter as well. By weight and not volume redacted. Yes. 1F, can you use it for pizza? I would assume so. I personally haven't because it's rectangular, but I would guess so. I use it for all kinds of things. Oh, so don't overmix. This is important for literally anything you bake. Here you can see the undermixed one is more dense. If that's what you want, then do it. The middle one is perfectly mixed. The right one is overmixed. But really, this isn't a good representation. I need another one that shows overmixed, because this is best case scenario for overmixed. If it's really overmixed, it's going to collapse. Redacted, usually, I'm not sure if there's recommended. I usually go for grams because they're finer. And usually that's what you're going to find, your measurements. If you Google online, how much does 1 cup of flour weigh, you're probably going to get it in grams. Usually bakers go for grams. Yes, Zebran, you are right. We will discuss that as well. If you're going to cook a lot of pizzas, 1F, I would buy just a cheap stone for your oven. You can get them very cheap. Like, I had one from Target. You can also use it for making sourdough. If you'll be making a lot of sourdough or bread or pizza, it's worth it. And like I said, I think you can get one for $20. So anyway, so don't overmix because you will introduce too much air into the butter, which will collapse it. Or you will overdevelop the gluten. So you'll see many recipes will say, don't overmix. You'll overdevelop the gluten, which will make it chewy and dense. Not dense in this way, dense in a different way. Make sure you're also using the correct temperature. If it's too hot, correct temperature of butter, I mean. If the butter's too hot, your cake will be too dense, your cookies will spread, you'll be frustrated. Feather, hello, good evening. Yes, redacted. Excellent. Aging your dough. Good way to make pizza. Also very good for your gut. Now, other mistakes, don't undermix. That will create denseness. It will be lumpy. So depending on what you make, you might leave lumps in there. And if it's a lump of butter, well, yes, that could be good. But that's not what we're talking about. Or you might unevenly distribute the ingredients, like if you've got more egg yolk here, more white here, that's gross. You also don't want to overcrowd the baking sheet, or the oven, or the cake pan. So if you're making a cake and it says fill it 1/2 full or 3/4 full, don't go above that. It will cause, I think I had a picture of that somewhere, maybe. It will not bake the same. If you don't overcrowd them on the sheet pan, because they spread into each other, and that won't be good. They also won't evenly heat as well. And then also don't bake more than one batch at a time. You want one batch at a time, middle rack, center of the middle rack. Now, if you're one of those rich people with 2 ovens, you can do 2 at a time. Also, as I said, don't eye it. Let me find my other... I'll get to that later. Oh, here's another, this is the one I like, look. So you can see the top one, mixed perfectly. Middle one, a bit overmixed. Last one, very overmixed. Your butter and your eggs were too mixed, they're too hot, they're too airy, and it collapsed, you failed, and you can't bring them to work. Let's see. Now, so measuring flour. Now, don't take the scoop and scoop it into your container. You want to fluff your flour with the fork. You can fluff it in the container. You don't have to put it into a bowl. Fluff the flour with a fork. Spoon it into the measuring cup till it's overflowing. Then make it level with the back of a knife. Because you want just the right amount of flour. Now, as I said, best way is to weigh it. To be certain... But if you don't want to weigh it, I don't usually weigh it unless I'm trying to impress someone. Like if I don't know, if I'm dating someone or it's my coworker's birthday and I really want to be like, oh yes, look what I can do. Then I'd weigh it. But most of the time, I'm just going to spoon and level it. Now, someone mentioned you don't want to use the dry. So this is a dry ingredient measuring cup. Now again, when I'm being lazy, I use it for liquids. But the best way is to use the glass measuring cups. Redacted, yes. Or 1F, there are tricks for that. We can discuss that. So, who knows about the meniscus? Did we all learn about this in chemistry class? Or maybe biology? I think it's probably chemistry where you learned it. So, you have to look. The meniscus, if you bend down and you look eye level, I'm not talking about the meniscus in your knee. I'm talking about of a liquid. So, it's the upward or downward curve of at the surface of a liquid. So you measure out your liquid in the glass measuring cup that's meant for liquids. Get down at eye level and look, you'll see this curve here. Now, if you want it here, at this, what is this, 20 and... Well, that looks strange. What measurement? Oh, that's the 20, idiot. If you need 20, you want the bottom of the meniscus to be right here. That's important. Oh... Thanks, Zebrin, again. Zebrin is gifting these subscriptions. Thank you so much. One for Gadako. So you need to get down like this. See? She's not just being weird. She is checking the meniscus. That's important. Dev Feather, a pound of butter is not too much if you're making croissants. I'll do that. Remind me in the end. Request for the end, Dev Feather. Please remind me. All right. Let's see. We also discussed the eggs. Here's no eggs. Here's 6 egg yolks. Here's 1 egg yolk. Here's 2 whole eggs. Here's 2 egg yolks. Here's 2 egg yolks, 1 egg white. So, you can see, yes, they look similar. Don't come at me with that. But they are different. See how these are all crackly? These are smoother. So there's a difference. So it matters. If you're a perfectionist or if there's a certain thing you're going for as with the texture. When you're measuring brown sugar, you'll use brown sugar a lot for cookies and such. Most recipes you're going to want to pack the brown sugar. Has anyone ever heard that before? Let me see if I can find an image for that. Packed brown sugar. So that is when you take the measuring cup. Can you see this here? So for packed brown sugar, you scoop it in the cup and then you press down. Oh, Ravencloak, don't worry. We'll discuss the more chewy ones. That's at the end. When I give you the recipes. So I prefer dark brown sugar. There's light in this dark brown sugar. Dark brown sugar has more molasses, so I prefer it. Personally, it's a personal preference. And yes, brown sugar is just white sugar with molasses. So you compress it. So most recipes, you want it compressed. If your recipe says unpacked brown sugar, make sure you don't compress it like this, because otherwise you'll be adding extra brown sugar, which overall is going to impact your cookies. Now, another mistake you can make is if your ingredients are too old. Now, believe it or not, Demerara sugar is actually different redacted. Not the same. They do look similar, but they're not the same. If your ingredients are too old. Now, believe it or not, baking soda and baking powder can get too old. And in that case, they lose their potency. So, I actually did not know that before, and I just use them forever and ever. But after about 6 months, they're not going to be nearly as potent. So, this can cause your baked good to not rise. Yes, they can go bad. And then your eggs. Now, generally speaking, old eggs are fine to cook with, but also it will impact your baking because the fresher eggs are going to create the better texture and the leavening. Muscovado, redacted, that's different as well. But they do, yes, they're all different kinds. Eggs, a way to know if your eggs are fresh or not. Have you ever seen this? You may have heard of this. Now, a way to tell if your eggs are old. Oh, this is tiny, damn it. So, put your eggs into a container of water. Oh, 1F super chat. Oh, thank you, 1F. Hag ingredients. So if your eggs are fresh, they will float to the bottom and float on the side. If they're stale, they'll float to the bottom but stand up. If they're old, they'll float to the top. I mean, they'll sink to the bottom. If they're old, they'll float to the top. The first two you can still bake with. I would not bake with the... Yes, if it floats, it's old. I would not bake with this one because it's probably going to impact the texture and the rise. All right. Other tips. Last tips here. Chilling your dough. We'll discuss this more. This one you don't see the... I don't like this one as much. This one's no good. Here we go. This one's better. So any baker is going to tell you... Logmania, by the way, I don't float at all. No. Only one part of me floats. Well, 2 parts. Anyway. If you have time, chill the dough. If you don't have time, your cookies will still taste good. It's fine. Unless, of course, you're making cut-out sugar cookies. We'll discuss that in a moment. All right, let's just discuss it now, actually. If you want to make sugar cookies in a shape like stars using a cookie cutter, you have to use a recipe for cut-out sugar cookies. Let me type this in. You can't use standard sugar cookie recipe. If you use a regular sugar cookie recipe and you cut it out and you're like, oh, these will be so cute. No, they're not going to be cute. They are going to spread and be hideous. You have to use a cut-out sugar cookie recipe, and this recipe has to chill. So, like if you're making the cute kind that's all decorated. Thaw, Ravencloak, what do you mean? When are you thawing them? So cut-out sugar cookies. Anyway, so for chocolate chip cookies, if you don't chill them, they'll still taste good. But if you do chill them, they'll likely turn out even better, depending on what you want it to taste like. So, here's one baked immediately. That's what I'm used to. Now, as you can tell by this one chilled a long time, this 48-hour chilled one, you can tell that looks like a bakery chocolate chip cookie, doesn't it? It will make it thicker and softer. Oh, Ravencloak, it won't be frozen. You just take it straight from the fridge. You don't want it frozen. If you can theoretically cook from frozen. You can see here they did it, but it won't turn out as good. So if it is frozen, so chilled means in the fridge. I'm sorry if that was the confusion. You chill the dough in the fridge. You can bake from frozen solid, like if you put it into bowls, then freeze it solid, but I wouldn't recommend that. If you have frozen it, you'll want to chill it in the fridge. To thaw it in the fridge. I'm so sorry. So anyway, if you want a soft, thick cookie, like these... You're going to... Well, now I don't know where I am. You are going to want to... Damn it. Chill it. If you want it crispy, we'll discuss that later. Another tip. When baking with chocolate, such as a chocolate cake, chocolate cupcakes or muffins, you can add coffee, either using hot coffee or using instant coffee or espresso. If you use liquid coffee, you might need to adjust the overall liquid content, and it won't make your baked good taste like coffee, but it will bring out the chocolate flavor. It will increase the chocolate flavor. And also I've written here, salt is life. I can't think of any baking recipe where you don't add salt. You always need salt. The author of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, I believe it is the one that said, salt just makes everything taste more like itself. It gives it that zing. It makes chocolate taste more chocolatey. So always use salt. Don't be an idiot. My mother, she wants to take care of her heart, so she literally does not keep salt in her pantry at all anymore. And I was like, Mom, it doesn't hurt your heart if you're cooking or baking with a normal amount of salt. Now, if you're eating ultra-processed foods or fast foods all the time, yes, that's harmful. But you need salt to live. Yes, 1F. You need salt for hydration, for a lot of things, the sodium-potassium pump. So that's just stupid. If you're worried about your sodium, don't eat highly processed foods or fast food, which is in itself highly processed. So yeah, don't get me started. Okay, we'll discuss vegan substitutes last. First, we will discuss the perfect chocolate chip cookie. So what I used to use... Wait, actually, I have a few more images here. So here's the egg thing again. You can see how gross this one with no eggs is. Again, the eggs, gross. That one looks a little too much. You can see this one has too many eggs. Uh-oh, snack time for me. Just a moment. Redacted, what's related to salt? Oh, I see the, really redacted. Is that a joke? He mixes adobo with Mountain Dew. Why would you do that? Alright, I'm sorry, Logmania. Jeez. Would you prefer that I faint by not eating? Interesting, redacted. My nana taught me when I was a little girl. When you bake, especially with chocolate, or anything with chocolate, you always add salt. Now, you don't want it to taste salty, obviously, but it brings out the flavor. Let's see, where was that other picture? I thought I had put them in perfect order. Oh, here you go. So here's cookies that were made wrong. This one has too much flour. Who would add too much flour? That's idiotic. Makes the cookies dry and crumbly. Who would do that? Baking powder. Without other... I think this must have baking powder. Oh, yes. Baking powder and no soda. Everything mixed together at once, as I said. See, it still looks good, but it's not right. Overcreamed, not enough sugar. What the heck is that? Overbaked. Those are just ugly. But one tip for overbaked cookies that I learned. Add them to a milkshake, and it works very well. This one has no eggs. I don't even know what I'm looking at. That just looks like a bowl of dough. Or not enough flour. Okay. Now, let's get... Okay, so, talking about your perfect cookie. What I used to use as my go-to recipe was the Nestle Toll House recipe. But what I did was I increased the brown sugar and reduced the white sugar accordingly. And I used white chocolate chips or chunks instead of semi-sweet. That used to be what I did. Before I was vegan, before I knew more things. That's what I did. Now, I want to introduce you to my girl, Sally. Sally is a genius. A self-taught baker is a genius. She is a perfectionist. She has perfected all her recipes. Redacted, I haven't asked what texture of cookie. I just asked type of cookie. Please comment what type of cookie you like best. And when it comes to chocolate chip, do you like soft? Do you like it crispy? Or do you like it chewy? Now, if you talk to my girl, Sally, tell her export said hi. She'll have no idea what that means, and she'll think you're a weirdo. But she has, like, painstakingly figured out the best for these recipes. So she is the best. So anyway, I use her recipes now. She has different ones, but here's an overview. Now, if we're talking about chocolate chip cookies. So, for her standard chocolate chip cookie, we'll start talking about the eggs. For her standard chocolate chip cookie, she uses 1 egg. And she chills the dough, and she uses room temperature butter and room temperature egg. Let me get this in here. Room temp. So for soft, I'm going to type this for you. Soft, here's some notes. Room temperature butter. Room temp eggs. Then she uses more brown sugar than white. And then she uses 1 whole egg. And she chills the dough. That's very important. Yes, Redacted, I'm with you on the chopped chocolate. I prefer chopped chocolate as well. Now, if you want them chewier, she uses 1 egg. 1 egg. Hold on. So I believe she uses the same sugar, so she still uses more brown sugar than white. She uses 1 egg, whole egg, and 1 egg yolk. And then she uses melted butter. And I believe on this one she still chills it. But something important about the melted butter. That doesn't mean melt it and put it into your recipe hot. Let it cool slightly, but still be melted. Now for crispy, you want to use more white sugar than brown. You want to use 1 egg yolk. This is per Sally, who I wholeheartedly trust. I'd trust her with my life if it was a baking competition. Use melted butter. And then I would suggest not chilling it, because they will spread more, creating more crispiness. Don't chill and then bake slightly longer. So don't take it out when the middle is undone, like I said to you earlier. Now, do you want a fancier cookie? Are you trying to impress someone? Here's what I suggest. Use chocolate chunks, or as Redactor says, chopped chocolate. It just looks fancier than the chips. So use the chopped chunks of chocolate. Or, yes, Lugmania, you can microwave the butter to melt it, but make sure it cools a bit. And then, another way to make it fancier, finish with Maldon sea salt flakes. So just sprinkle them on after baking, but while still, so fresh out of the oven, sprinkle it on. And then you have sea salt chocolate chip cookies, or chocolate chunk cookies, I should say. That will impress someone. If you really want to go the extra mile, use browned butter. Sally has a recipe for that. But in her recipe, she makes the brown butter, then refrigerates it to use it, and then room temperaturizes it. So she still uses it as a solid. So, browned butter. That's getting very fancy. Oh, Jack Tricks! Congratulations and thank you for becoming a member. So those are some tips there. And then I had an image. Where is it? Let me go by and find it. So those, and Sally has a recipe for all of those. Here it is. So here's some comparisons as well. This used extra flour. These used all granulated sugar. You can see those crispier edges. All brown sugar. Melted butter. Chilled butter. One or the other of baking powder or soda. One with both. Jack Tricks, I'm glad you didn't miss stream. That was the most important part. And DM, congratulations on your anniversary. It's your anniversary with me, I suppose. Yes, then enduring. And the cookies help us endure. All right. Let's see. So now we can discuss vegan and gluten-free. So gluten-free substitute, I highly recommend Bob's Red Mill. Let me see if I used all my images here. Bob's Red Mill. Bob makes a flour recipe. So in the past, if you wanted gluten-free, you had to mix all these different ingredients together. Like psyllium husk. It's such a hassle. You had to buy 5 different things and mix them together. Bob has done it for you. So you can use 1 cup of Bob's gluten-free flour in place of 1 cup of regular flour. Now bear in mind, it doesn't always work. I tried it with tortillas. Didn't work. I couldn't roll them out because it lacked the gluten, so it wasn't stretchy. Also, when I made cookies that were gluten and egg-free, they were dry. So if you're going to make it gluten and egg-free cookie, you'll want to use the vegan substitute of well, it calls it chickpea brine here, but it's usually called aquafaba. So that gives it enough moisture. So, vegan substitute ingredients. Now, my favorite is the Earth Balance soy-free buttery sticks. I prefer the soy-free to the one with soy, not because I don't like soy, I eat a lot of soy, but I find it tastes butterier. So, oh, Matryoshka, do you have any tips for gluten-free pizza crust? We were discussing that earlier. Bean water, redacted, thank you for that. I didn't know that. Anyway, I love the Earth Balance soy-free buttery sticks. I have heard that Miyoko's European butter is better for some recipes, and overall it is very popular. I've heard it's better for things like toffee and caramel. Now, for frosting, the two most popular online seem to be Miyoko's or Country Crock. So those are things. Now, eggs. Eggs are the trickiest to substitute. Butter and milk and dairy products are easy. Eggs are difficult. Because the thing about eggs is it depends on what the function of the egg is in your recipe. Is it a binder? Is it for leavening? Is it for texture? Is it for moisture? Is it for structure? Is it for richness? Usually the eggs have more than one function in a recipe, such as a binder and a leavener and richness. Now, what substitute you use depends on what the function is. So silken tofu, that sounds horrifying, and I honestly for the longest time wouldn't taste anything made from silken tofu as the egg substitute. However, for things like mousse, chocolate mousse, I made a silken tofu chocolate mousse, turned out great. You can't taste it. So there's certain recipes that you do want silken tofu and it works. Believe me, it really does. I was very skeptical. I thought that's disgusting, it can't work. It works. But only for the right... I wouldn't do it for cookies. I would do it for something heavy in eggs. Or where the texture... If the texture is the... If the texture is the main feature, like in mousse, I would use the egg. Now, a lot of people like banana. My sister uses banana. And when my nephew was a baby, he was allergic to eggs. He's not anymore, thank God. It's a hassle. She would use banana. I hate it. I have tried banana a few times. All I taste is banana. I'm very sensitive to the taste of banana, so it's not the one I go for. I've never tried yogurt. Flaxseed, not my go-to. I don't recommend it most of the time. However, it did work very well for my vegan pecan pie. I will give it that. So sometimes flaxseed's good. Applesauce works very well for things like muffins, because you need it for that texture and binder. Works very well for muffins. I have used it and it works. Oh dear, I need more water. Chickpea brine is usually referred to as aquafaba. I didn't try this for a long time because, again, it sounds disgusting. So you can make aquafaba at home, but usually you can just get it from a can of chickpeas. Drain the chickpeas, hold on to the liquid. I save it in the freezer. 3 tablespoons of aquafaba is equal to 1 egg. 1 whole egg. So I just save it in the freezer to use later, because then you can thaw it and it works great. My other go-to, you can use cornstarch and water. I've used that for some things, but the other go-to is Bob's egg replacer. Bob's red mill egg replacer. Works great in many things. I've used it in cookies. Works great. Now for chickpea flour is another one. I personally haven't tried chickpea flour as an egg substitute. However, I know that Sprouts grocery store, their vegan chocolate chip cookies, which are fantastic, they use chickpea flour. So it does work. Now here's Sally, my girl. Milk and other substitutes. For cream cheese, I usually use Violife. Violife is fantastic as a... Like, I almost thought I'd bought the wrong thing the first time I tried Violife. It's a fantastic tangy cream cheese taste. And impressive on the texture as well, so that's a good one. For milk or whole milk, pretty much any baking recipe, you're going to want to go ahead and use unsweetened soy milk. And sweet is important. Buttermilk, a very easy substitute, is 1 cup of plant milk and 1 tablespoon of either apple cider vinegar or lemon juice. Let it sit for a few minutes, and it's a foolproof buttermilk substitute. Others, if you can get your hands on sweetened condensed oat milk or evaporated oat milk, these are incredible substitutes. I've used them many times and blown away. Thrilled to have them in existence. Another one for heavy cream or whipping cream, Califia. I'll write that. Or Silk. Both make a brand you can buy. They have it at Safeway. And it works very well. I've whipped it up. I made mango float, mango royale with it. Turned out great. Matryoshka, the problem with almond milk in baking is that it doesn't have the same protein content, a similar protein content or viscosity of whole milk or milk. So it's thinner and less protein, which can impact it. But most of the time, it probably will work out all right. Although you might want to stick with soy milk for the buttermilk. Now, my favorite vegan chocolate substitute is Ghirardelli Semi-Sweet is now vegan. The Ghirardelli Semi-Sweet chocolate chips are now vegan. And I think they're like allergy-free. So they're fantastic. I was thrilled. Yeah, K-Chim, I did forget my steps. I realized about 2 minutes ago and I was really pissed off. Because I missed them at like 3 p.m. as well. Whew. All right. Oh, and then my go-to for vegan recipes. These are all cooking, but she does desserts as well. I usually go to Nora. I've had great success with Nora's vegan recipes. Now, usually since I know enough about vegan baking, I'll often just go for a Sally recipe and swap out appropriately. And sometimes I even just mishmash different recipes together. But you really have to understand the science of what you're doing if you do that, or you'll be very disappointed with the results. All right, everyone. Time for me, British export, to leave and move on with the stream to impressions. Thank you, everyone. Let me know how your cookies turn out. If you do some cookie baking, please post in the Discord. All right, time for water. Matryoshka, I haven't tried carob. All I know is that they use carob. They'll give carob to dogs as a chocolate substitute, which is like, why bother at all? Oh. All right, get your impressions in. Oh, and let's vote on the next topic, everybody. Thoughts on the next topic for next Wednesday. New viewers, shocking twist here, I'm not actually British. You never saw it coming, did you? So yes, start commenting on next week's topic and comment and get your blah, 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 blah. Impression requests in, that's the word. Out of context, why'd you tell him? I was trying to keep it a secret. Yes, we've done so many things, Matryoshka. What next? Oh, cracking my neck. Oh, it's really hard for me to turn it off. Cheese making, Matryoshka. That's interesting. I've never made cheese. I am interested in the science of it, though. We can talk about that cheese made with maggots that they have in Germany. That's a real thing. Sorry, Zebrin. Was it doing... Oh, because I was cracking my neck. Crown request from Durfeather. Well, hello. I demand a 3-hour scream of British accent. It's stream, my king. Fruit salad. Wait, redacted, were you saying... I think I maybe missed your initial comment. Were you saying Like ancient history? What was your initial... Oh, Earth history. There it is. I see it. Right, Earth history. Yeah, I know. She's bugging out right now. Smoking foods. Not a big fan of smoked foods. Well, I don't like artificial smoke flavor. I adore it so much. I will turn everything into bubbles. What? Grave? Cinderella? Oh, okay. Almost everything into bubbles. History behind math. That's interesting. I do love me some history. I gotta stand up. My butt hurts. That's what happens when you don't get those steps in. That's why they want you up. Ooh, written language. Ah, I like that, Jack Tricks. Excuse me. Okay. Let's narrow this down to 4. Out of context. Yeah, what? And I would have to include the future evolution of cows. Where are cows headed? All right. I'll give 2 more minutes. 9:15 is when I'll call it for the blah 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 for the suggestions for tomorrow. Blah 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 ba ba da ba ba da da. Ooh, cryptids from different parts of the world. That's cool. There's some scary ones out there. Yeah, Nerdiconium. With our influence, they would just get dumb, I guess. History of rubber ducks? Is that you, Arthur Weasley? Anybody get that? Anybody get that reference? All right, 1 more minute. If you've got anything, where's Zephyr? Is Zephyr not here? I guess he got everything he wanted, right? He wanted sharks. He wanted, what did he want? Dinosaurs. Another one. Too young to understand that. Logmania, you haven't seen Harry Potter? Thank you, Gamma. Sheesh. The automobile. This is the largest automobile I could afford. How about that one? All right. When the time comes, I'm gonna narrow it down to 4. Thank you. I think 22. You must also be 21. KCM, I thought this said history of Texas, and I was like, okay. What pose am I doing? Steps. I'm getting my steps in. My butt was hurting. I just realized it's Matryoshka. Have I been saying your name wrong? Every time I've read it before, I've switched the O and the Y. Matryoshka. Matryoshka. Have I been saying it wrong? Oh my god. I'm so embarrassed. I literally just noticed that the O and the Y are not how I've been reading it. 1F, why are you making assumptions about the size of my butt? I'm so mad at myself. Matryoshka. Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Why didn't you ever say anything? I'm a disgrace. Matryoshka. I'm so sorry. All this time, I literally just was like, wait, what the heck? For a second, I was like, did they change it? Did they change the spelling? My brain really thought that. Okay, anyway, time to sit. Okay, I'm narrowing it down, y'all. All right, I'm gonna say cryptids from different parts of the world. I'm gonna say history of the written language. I'm gonna say, how about cheese making in different parts of, and cheese around the world? And let's see, the last one. How about history of automobiles? Starting with the invention of the wheel, which they think was in Sumer, but apparently maybe it was somewhere else. I can't remember where I read it might have been. Was it Çatalhöyük? I can't remember. No, it was it the Indus Valley? I can't remember. All right, so those are gonna be them. I'm gonna have you vote on those, and then I also need you to vote on what I play tomorrow. Do we want Tales of Sekyu? Sorry, next time out of context. Do we want Tales of Sekyu or Stellar Blade tomorrow? I'll have you vote on that next. And I'm gonna... Do I need pretzels? No, I think I'm okay. I just needed those two. I have a really hard time telling when I'm hungry or not. I'm not joking at all. So then I get too hungry and I get really sick. And angry sometimes. I either get really angry or I get really sick. Don't know when I'm hungry. So we'll see. Wait until I feel sick again. That's when it's time to eat. Yeah, Logmania, I get really angry. I get major hanger. Matryoshka, I'll try, but I'm not great at it. I only do an Australian accent when I'm doing a failed English accent. Redacted, remember those commercials. Fruit salad. Yummy, yummy. Out of context, I thought of you because I saw a young coyote, I think it was. I don't think it was a fox. It looked like a coyote to me, but it was like, not a baby, but like a young one. That's true, KCM. I do get angry when I don't get my steps. I have OCD and autism, so when I look at my app, my Fitbit app, and it doesn't have every hour filled in for the steps, it's just really upsetting. Oh. Redacted, am I not myself when I'm hungry, or am I more myself? Maybe that's my true self. Hungry Hulk export. Is that the real me? Dirtfeather, aren't foxes carnivores? I think they eat cats, right? Do they eat cats and, like, squirrels and birds? That would be my guess. A Bowflex 1F? What? Yeah, chickens. Fruit salad. Yummy, yummy. Fruit salad. Yummy, yummy. They might be omnivores, Gamma. Because there's that fox in the sour grapes story, right? They might be omnivores. Alright, so it looks like Cryptids is winning. While you're getting your last votes in, I'm gonna start getting ready to vote for tomorrow's game. Stellar Blade or Tales of Sekyu. Matryoshka, someone said they're not obligate carnivores. My understanding is that cats are, though. Oh, redacted. I didn't understand what you were talking about. No, I have no idea what you're talking about. So Cryptids wins. So now let's vote. Yeah, cats love getting high on catnip. Although I've heard there's a couple other plants. What are they called? Silver something? Silver vine. Thank you, Zebron. We had a cat get a bit drunk once. On accident, my mom put beer out as a deterrent for some snails with our plants, but the cat was like, hey, I'm gonna try this. And obviously it doesn't take much. My cat loves catnip. I get this fresh organic catnip and I sprinkle it and she loves to roll in it. So voting Stellar Blade or Tales of Sekyu. So far, comments are supporting Stellar Blade. But hey, let's give Seikyu a chance. I was making some progress with Musashi. I want some yaki onigiri. Sounds good. And don't forget, tomorrow, Mexican food stream. So we're doing our virtual dinner party. So everyone who wants to participate, get some Mexican food. I still haven't decided which place I'm going and if I'm doing tacos, burrito, or I was thinking even chimichanga maybe, because the chimichanga looked good. Yeah, Gamma, he did tick me off a bit, but I'll still give him a chance. I don't know, I felt like he was a little difficult to talk to. Dirtfeather, no Dark Souls, Alright, so, okay. So, Cryptids and Stellar Blade were the easy winners, it looks like. Alright. Jack Tricks have Mexican again, but a different kind. There's so many things. Just get a concha. That'd be nice and cheap and delicious. Alright, last chance for requests. And remember, new video comes out tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Friday. It's a funny, happy video, despite the thumbnail. I was joking, but I think maybe some people were turned off by it. I was a fool. Alright, I'll give till 9:25 for requests. Ooh, Tex-Mex. I don't know if I've had Tex-Mex out of context. What's a restaurant that does Tex-Mex? Is there like a chain? I'm trying to think. Have I ever had Tex-Mex? I've never been to Texas. Lockmania. Lillywise requests from Zebrin. Try the gray stuff. It's delicious. I was so disappointed when I went to Disney in, I think it was September. And I was dying to try the gray stuff. But they only had seasonal gray stuff. And like, it was good, but it was pumpkin spice gray stuff. I was like, all these years, I've never gotten to try the gray stuff, and it's pumpkin spice. So I'll have to go back, try again. I was like, why would you do if you're gonna do seasonal one, you have to also offer the regular one. All right, Dirtfeather's request. Well, hello. Let the request flow. Blue doo. Oh, sorry, Derp. I missed your siren request. I adore it so much. What does the fox say? Redacted, isn't carne asada beef and al pastor is pork, or am I totally off there? I'm not actually sure I know what al pastor is. Back when I ate meat, I liked carne asada. Does smell good. Alright, friends. Oh, I see Dirtfeathers. 2-hour stream. Push it to the limit. 1F, that is partially true. Pumpkin spice is a blend of brown spices. However, many places started actually adding pumpkin. When people figured out... So years ago, people thought pumpkin spice contained pumpkin. Then they found out it didn't. So a bunch of places have actually started adding pumpkin to their pumpkin spice, like coffee syrup or coffee sauce, for example. Like I think even Starbucks does that. DM, I love the art and story of favorite items. I just hate the farming. All right, everyone. See y'all tomorrow with either tacos, chimichanga, or burrito. Majram.